If you're new to the channel, my name is Mark, this is Toast Dragon Fantasy, and today I'm going to be bringing you my August reading wrap-up. Sorry it's a bit late. What are we? We're 9th of September as of filming this. I would have got it up sooner, but I'm actually a masked vigilante crime stopper in my spare time, so that's why. Obviously. 4 books to talk about, so without further ado, let's just get into this wrap-up. The first book that I finished at the start of August was The Vagrant by Peter Newman. In fact, I've got copies of these books. Why am I not holding them up? This is BookTube, man. And that can go. The Vagrant by Peter Newman. This is the story of a man called the Vagrant who is travelling across a war-torn dystopian landscape, I suppose. It's a world ravaged by 2 kind of mega supernatural beings that are kind of clashing, if you like, tainting and infecting everything. And this man has to deliver a baby, an untainted baby, to the, I think it was the Golden City or something. Shining City, not the Golden City. Has to deliver this untainted baby to the Shining City. And his travelling companions are a man who has escaped from one of these war-torn zones and a goat. Pretty much the most ragtag group of heroes you'll ever find in a book. I thought it was a very solid read. The characters themselves were the main strength. The Vagrant himself is mute, and yet he's still got more characterization than most main protagonists out there. Just from simple little things that he does with his simple little mannerisms, you know, facial expressions, that's all it takes to create strong characters, and he does it in abundance. And the supporting cast, the goat is an amazing character, the baby is an amazing character. It's just a wonderful story for characters. Where it's lacking is plot. In terms of a journey, it sort of reminds me of The Dark Tower. It's a bit meandering, it's more episodic in a lot of ways, so he kind of veers from one bad place onto another bad place, and he does a little task there and he goes off somewhere else, and it didn't flow that well, I would suggest. And it was interspersed with a lot of flashbacks about how the world came into being as it is. So that detracted from it a little bit. Having said that, it was still a very, very enjoyable read. I got through it fairly quickly, and I will definitely be reading the next 2, which I believe are The Malice and The Seven by Peter Newman. The second book that I read in August was Age of Myth by Michael J. Sullivan. I suppose it would be high fantasy. You got your fair share of mythical creatures, mythical beings. It centres around a tribe in the forest whose leader dies very early on in the story, and it's kind of the fallout of that. The story follows the leader's wife. It also follows a character who goes on to be christened as someone called the God Killer, through no fault of his own, I would suggest. And it also follows the story of a little mage with her wolf companion, she was amazing. She was a phenomenal character. Suri, yeah. Suri's the girl, the mage. Fantastic character. It was a very solid read. It was very well written. It didn't wow me, which is perhaps why I'm actually sitting here struggling to think about what I'm actually going to talk about when it comes to this book. You know, it was just a very solid book across the board. It didn't have any major, you know, spectacular moments. It didn't have any weaknesses. It was paced very, very well. As I said, the characters on the whole very, very strong. Plot was perhaps lacking again a little bit, but again, I will definitely be carrying on with the series based on the strength of this book. Third up is one that I read on Kindle, so I don't have the physical copy, and that is Red Rising by Pierce Brown. I will pop a picture up here. It tells the story of Darrow, who is a miner. He is digging in the kind of bowels of Mars, if you like, and he's known as Red. However, a whole kind of series of tragedies, if you like, conspire to eventually lead him to be in a position where he can infiltrate the Golds, who are the benevolent ruling classes of the universe, effectively. And what follows is very much a competition in kind of the realm of Hunger Games, I suppose, but it's far more military. It's far more militaristic. Is that a word? That might be a word. So perhaps it's more actually akin to Ender's Game in a lot of ways. But I adored this book. It was one of the strongest books I've read this year. Just the whole package was incredible. It pretty much started from scratch when it came to the military side of the competition, if you like. Everyone kind of started from the same page, and it was just fascinating to see how the different characters and the different kind of houses attempted to win this game and attempted to, you know, use use tactics and coercion and blackmail and all kinds of, you know, tricks and tactics to win the competition. Darrow is a phenomenal lead. He is he ventures a little into Mary Sue territory, by which I mean that he is very, very good at everything, which I don't usually like, but he's built to be like that, so he can kind of, there's kind of a loophole in it. The setting is fabulous. The majority of the book, it takes place on this kind of game arena setting type thing. As I said, that's perhaps where it's most like the Hunger Games. Characters are wonderful. I actually rooted for the romance for once, which very rarely happens. So if I'm thinking as someone who's very, very cynical when it comes to book romances, if I'm thinking that a romance is working, I like to think that it's very, very good. So the main romance, well, it's not even a romance. You know, it never really explicitly becomes a romance, but it's very much simmering in the background, and I love that kind of writing. That's the kind of romance that I like, when it's just simmering and bubbling, and you never know quite where it's at, because that is real life. I would suggest that's closer to real life than any, you know, insta love nonsense. So yeah, I don't really have a bad thing to say about this book. It is amazing. And the final book that I got through this month, right, let's just get this over and done with. Caught with Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas is perhaps the most hyped book on BookTube, and I don't know why. I didn't go into this with high expectations. The reason I didn't go into it with high expectations is because I've read the first one, obviously, and I've also read a couple of the Selena books, and none of them have done a lot for me. What I will say is that this is by far the strongest of the books that I have read by her so far. There was a lot to this book that was really good. I think the characters, well, I think the two main characters, Feyre and Rhysand, are strong characters, and Feyre was insufferable in the first book, but she really changes in this book, and she's very multi-layered. She's a very strong main protagonist, and Rhysand is an equally strong character. I don't quite understand the fervour around him. There have been leading guys in books before that I feel would merit such a fever more than him. I didn't have much time for the actual writing itself, and there was one moment that just, and it happened in the first book as well, where Rhys, he literally expositioned everything out. It kind of all came out at once, and it kind of just filled in a load of holes that kind of were there, and it was just such primitive writing at that point. Like, I don't know, that really grated on me. And I also don't think much of the other characters, to be honest. I mean, a lot was made of this inner circle. They didn't do anything for me. I got mixed up as to who the two main other Illyrians were. For me, they were the same person. They didn't have any distinctive personality. The only one, is it Amren? I think Amren was the only one that interested me out of them. She was good. She was pretty interesting, actually. So overall, I think given the expectations that I came in with it, it did a lot more than what I was expecting. So I had to give Sarah J. Maas credit for that. But I don't care about what happens in the third one, particularly given the fact that it's got very mixed reviews. I won't be reading the third one, and I've already pretty much given up on our other series as well. So I feel as though I've given it a go because of the hype. It's just about the only occasion where I have, out of curiosity, just gone in and seen what it's all about. And I've done it, and think that myself and Sarah J. Maas will now part as amicable friends. That's where we'll stop with that. So there we have it. That is my August wrap-up. Once again, apologies that it is a little late. Let me know down in the comments if you have read any of those books that I've mentioned, and what your opinions of them were. Obviously, don't give any spoilers away, because that isn't nice. If you liked today's video, although there is a high chance that some of you may not, but if you did like today's video, give it a thumbs up, because that will tell me how well it has done. If you are new to the channel and you've only just discovered me today, check out some of my other videos, and if they entertain you as well, subscribe to the channel, and you'll be notified when more BookTube, AuthorTube, and skit type content come your way. That is all I have time for you today, so with that being said, my name is Mark. This is Toast Dragon Fantasy, and I will hopefully see you in the next video. Goodbye.